In this video, we're going to review how to factor by grouping, and we'll look at two different examples in order to learn this. It is always going to follow the same series of steps, and it relies heavily on common factoring. So let's take a look at our first example. Here we have 3x cubed plus 2x squared plus 6x plus 4. So in order to factor this, what we're going to do is we're going to split this in half. So we're going to take this and split it right down the middle and just consider the first two terms separate from the second two terms. So in our first two terms, we have 3x cubed plus 2x squared. Think about what the greatest common factor is between those two terms. So 3 and 2, they are not divisible by anything other than 1. X cubed and x squared, we can take out a x squared. If we look at our second two terms, our greatest common factor between them, we look at the 6 and the 4, they are both divisible by 2. So our greatest common factor between those two is a 2. So what we're going to do now is we're going to factor out the greatest common factor, x squared, from our first two terms, and factor out the greatest common factor 2 from our second two terms. That would give us x squared times, so 3x cubed divided by x squared gives us a 3x. And then we have 2x squared divided by x squared gives you a 2. So we have 3x squared plus 2. We're going to add to that, factor out the greatest common factor from our second two terms, which is a 2. And when we do that, 6x divided by 2 gives us a 3x, and 4 divided by 2 gives us a 2. Now we can see that we ended up with the same bracket. We have 3x plus 2 in both of these, which means we can common factor out the 3x plus 2. When we do that, what we're left with is everything that's left. So from our first term now, we're left with an x squared. From our second term, we're left with a 2. So that is this completely factored. Let's look at one more example of this. So in this case, we have 6n cubed plus 3n squared plus 8n plus 4. We're going to do the same thing here. We're going to split this right down the center. And let's consider what the greatest common factor is from the first two terms. So we have 6n cubed plus 3n squared. 6 and 3, if we look at the numbers, they're both divisible by 3. And then n cubed and n squared are both divisible by n squared. Then we get to the second two terms, the greatest common factor between 8n and 4. They are both divisible by 4. Let's now look at how to factor this further. So we're going to pull out the 3n squared from our first two terms. When we do that, we get 6n cubed divided by 3n squared, which gives us a 2n, and then 3n squared divided by 3n squared, which gives us a 1. Same thing for our second two terms. We're now going to factor out the positive 4. When you do that, you get 8n divided by 4, which gives you a 2n, and a 4 divided by 4, which gives you a 1. So here we have, again, the same bracket is being created in both of these, which means we can common factor that out now. We take out the 2n plus 1. What we're left with from our first term is 3n squared. What we're left with from our second term is a 4.